So thank you very much for the invitation to being here and to have this conversation with you. George, we only met recently, but we have built bridges, cultural bridges between both my countries, Colombia and Greece. Last August, we were sitting together looking at the Acropolis, and we arranged the trip of the Arhuaco leaders to Greece. Can you please share with the audience about Terra Initiative and also all the details about this trip?
Yeah, it is. First of all, Adriana, thank you, and thank you for everything you do and have done and will do. So we have a project in Colombia called Project Terra. We actually do a lot of business, as you know, in your country. Project Terra is very special because it's a 60-megawatt solar facility, but it's in partnership with an indigenous tribe, with an ancient people that don't partner with others. It took us 6 years to convince them. So this project is very innovative, it's very sustainable. We're also preserving 120,000 hectares of pristine land of your country, as you know. And the story, it's funny to see you now, because I'm having flashbacks. So we were having a coffee, so you asked me to meet the Consul General, Mr. Skoufalos.
Exactly.
And I said, of course. And we were here in the summer, and we had a coffee at the roof garden of the GB. And I sit down, and Mr. Skoufalos says, George, your grandfather used to be the chief accountant of my father. I mean, what? Which was true, by the way. And then I started telling him what we did in Colombia. And I think he was a bit surprised, because, as you know, we do a lot. And then I mentioned the Arhuacos name. And you reacted immediately. You said, what? Arhuacos? How do you know the Arhuacos? I said, Adriana, we don't even know them, but we have a partnership with them. We're partnering with them. And so you were amazed. And then I said to you, I thought quickly, do you want them to come to Greece? And you said, yes. You said immediately, yes. So I said, are you sure?
Yes.
And then you said, yes, I'm sure, George. So I said, okay. So I took out my phone and I texted a guy that some people in the audience would know, Camilo. Yes. And I said, Camilo, do you think the Arhuacos would like to come to Greece? Camilo responded in 5 seconds, yes, with 20 exclamation marks. And that triggered the event and the fact that the Arhuacos people came to this country. And one thing that's important, and I think we're going to talk about later, is Greek values.
Exactly.
And part of the reason, Adriana, that we have this partnership with them is because of the Greek values that we try and espouse.
Yes, and also just to finish a little bit about the Arhuacos project, because I really believe that is a unique model that you have created, because you created from scratch that business model of working with the indigenous people. And you're not only working with the indigenous people in Colombia, you're also working in Canada.
Correct.
So I think you have to show more this business model, because it's amazing what you do.
Yeah, and you know, they are very profound souls. When you speak to them, you don't forget what they say to you. It's like you're talking to someone from 2,000 years ago here in Greece. You know, society can pollute us. But we're very proud that we had the patience and we live the values. And we have 2 partnerships, one for 100 megawatts in northern Canada with an indigenous tribe, and one with the Arhuacos. And it took a long time, but we did it. I'm very proud. I didn't do anything. I mean, don't think everyone talks about George. There's a system, there's a team. There are people all over the world that work. We operate across 60 countries. You know, there's an architecture of an organization that does all the work.
Well, that's something I really am amazed and grateful for, because the system of Libra Group is really amazing. Everything worked smoothly, and you have a team that delivers, and all of them are very young. So and they are from all over the world. They're not only Greeks or Colombians. You have from different parts of the country. So this is something that I want to ask you. Greek values. You always talked about the importance of the Greek values while running a diversified global company in 60 countries with 20 subsidiaries. I mean, 2 weeks ago you were in Panama in a very important event that combines all these cultures together. And can you please tell us about how these Greek values apply when you're doing business on a global scale and working with cultures and people from all over the world?
Yeah, so I was in Panama. Maybe I should find a link to Panama because we launched It Takes Courage with the help of Mike. Well, Mike led the whole thing. So I'll give you one example, Adriana, which is a very nice story. And this is in some ways the perfect embodiment of what I said. So we do a lot of business in Panama too. We're building a lot of, we do a lot of business and a lot of philanthropy. And about 3 years ago, in COVID, just as COVID was ending, I had a lunch with the president of Panama, who is the president for another 1 month. He's a very decent man. He's a very ethical, stoic person. And we're in a room in New York, in the Intercontinental Hotel. I go into the room, cameras and everything everywhere, ministers, and the president is sitting on my left. We all sit down. You know, there's 3 or 4 from Libra Group and Libra Philanthropies, and there's 6 or 7 for the Panamanians. And this is the head of Panama. I mean, he's a president. So you're always a little bit nervous when you meet a president, right? I mean, we're humans at the end of the day. And so I sit down, and I remember we had masks, and I took off my mask, and I said, everyone, I want to introduce everyone, say hello, and we have a long agenda. The president said, no. On my left, right? Like, what do you mean, no? He says, in my head, I didn't say anything. He says, the agenda is 1 word, George. And I was thinking, am I alive? Is this really happening? I'm with the president and the ministers. Silence. And he takes pieces of paper out of his pocket and he puts them, like with little notes, on the thing. And he looks at me straight in the eye and he says, the agenda is philotimo, George. Again, I'm thinking, is this really happening to me? Am I in a Netflix show or is this real life? And he starts to give this speech. I had made a speech many years ago about philotimo. He starts to give this speech about how he suffered so much in COVID. And then one day he found this speech and he watched it, he listened to it 30 times. And the values derived from those words helped assuage the pain that he was going through as he was running the country during COVID. And then he says, and George, I made it mandatory for every member of the cabinet to watch this speech. And each of the ministers was like, see. They were all saying yes. So that is a profound and almost perfect, perhaps a little bit unrealistic as well, example of how Greek values, properly dispensed, can help change the world for the better in many ways. I was very proud. I mean, words count. What we say counts. Emotions count. Treating people with respect counts. Looking at people when you speak to them. Not looking down at people. Look at people. Or sometimes look up to them. We all have to aspire to something. We all need heroes, right? All of us. The president needs a hero. The guy on the street needs a hero. So that was a very moving moment. And actually, I asked him when I was in Panama, when we had a meeting last week, I actually said, I'm going to be in Greece. Am I free to tell the story of the philotimo story? And he said, it's approved immediately. So not all examples are like that, but that's a nice one.
So let's say 3 Greek values that we have to keep always in our hearts?
I think philotimo obviously has to be there. Family. And I would say remembrance. We are a suffering tribe. The more you go back in life, the worse it is for our people. But here we are, living in a free society, in a liberal democracy of the Western world, protected, defended. We have the ability to elect what we want to become. Do we wish to become the best version of ourselves? Do we not? That's a choice we are free to make. There are plenty of places in this world where that choice is not free.
And we take them for granted as well.
Yes, well, that's where the perspective is very important. And I obtained perspective by reading history. I never went to university, but I learned history. I obtained perspective by traveling, by going to Panama. Okay, there's a meeting with the president, but there's also a trip to Fundación Calicanto.
Yes, I want you to tell us about that. If it's
40 women, sorry to be graphic, but you can tell they had very difficult lives. I mean, they were beaten, women, but they were standing tall. Why? Because this foundation is a mechanism of helping them become the best version of themselves in spite of the agony that they went through. So, I was very proud that day for many reasons. But the number one reason was that my wife, who is a very beautiful soul, spoke to these women. I don't want to get emotional now, so we better move on. But it was very touching. She's a Latina Greek. Right. And she lifted the spirits of these beaten down souls with words of courage, optimism, understanding, seeing people, not ignoring them. Mostly these women are not seen by anyone.
Exactly.
So that's how I, as George, keep my perspective, or try to keep my perspective.
Well, I think seeing people and the human side is very important in sustainability. Why I'm going backwards now to innovation and sustainability is because Libra Group, in its 20 subsidiaries, has been always in the forefront of innovation and sustainability. You have an amazing team that makes sure that all your business are aligned with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So can you give us some examples of how you have managed to do this?
Look, innovation is not just new equipment and technology. Innovation can be, 20 years ago, giving jobs to women in the shipping business. It's too dominated by males. Sorry, it needs more balance. Innovation can be empowering a young person. Innovation can be empowering someone that has never been given an opportunity. It is perhaps innovative thinking to meet the president and then go to Calicanto. So it starts with a state of mind. And that state of mind leads to actions, which reminds people, which then leads to an enhanced state of mind. So it starts there. Some examples are, we announced today that Aria Hotels, which is our hospitality business here in Greece, which is going to expand out of Greece very soon. That's another... maybe to Colombia. Maybe Cartagena if Makis does a job. If he's here, he's probably laughing. Anyway, we discussed this today. But what we did is Aria leased 10 eVTOLs, electric vehicles, electric helicopters from one of our other subsidiaries. They will be the first electric vehicles to arrive in Greece because our other subsidiary got the earliest slots. And we announced today that we will be building 4 vertiports. There. Yeah, I had the same reaction when I heard the word vertiport 3 months ago. I was like, can you explain what this is?
Yes, please explain us what it is.
Well, it's just a heliport, but for an electric vehicle. Oh. So like an airport is a charging station.
Okay.
So we're trying to help redefine, Greek tourism, and we will bring the first equipment here to Greece. Another example of the sustainability is that we have about a $4 billion investment program in solar projects in about 14 countries through the 4 renewable energy companies we have. People have to act. If we don't act, we leave a worse world behind us.
And also in shipping.
Yes, in shipping, we have set up a subsidiary of our shipping business called Loma Labs, which has been partnering and trying to bring deep tech into the shipping business, be it partnering with a carbon capture company or we partnered with an underwater hull robotics company that uses AI to clean the ship's hulls.
Yes.
But that's all I know. It sounds pretty cool, right?
And they turn it
but you foster an innovative culture. The more innovative you become, if that makes any sense. And it's very important for us. We never wanted to be just like everyone else. We wanted to be different and stand tall and proud. And, I'm very proud that, I call them the lionesses of Libra. We have many women in leadership positions. It's not box ticking. It has to be earned, right? And almost in the world of today, it's almost wrong to say empower a woman. It's almost demeaning. I'm almost embarrassed to say it. The point is to create a level playing field where meritocracy, where if you are worthy, you move forwards. If you want to be the best version of yourself, you can be.
Well, George, certainly, Libra does not do easy. I heard you in recent remarks at the Concordia America Summit, which took place in Miami, and you said that. You said, Libra Group does not do easy.
Did I say that?
Yes.
It's true.
And
you want easy? No. You bringing the Araucos here was easy? Okay.
But the group has not had an easy time in Greece.
Yeah.
You have faced some challenges.
Some.
And please share with us what you have learned from that.
Many things. Number one, look, the number one lesson is I was very idealistic. I think I still am, but the idealism has more governance on it today. Part of the core values that built everything is empower the underdog, empower women, and empower young people. It doesn't always work, but that's the core values. I thought, genuinely, that if you empower the underdog, if you give opportunity to someone who has been denied it, if you help someone out of goodness or empowerment, that you will have gratitude and loyalty back. What I realized is the following, that if you empower the underdog that happens to come from the Scorpion kingdom, you're not empowering an underdog. What you're doing is you're empowering a scorpion. Yeah. And the scorpion will grow, and one day it will eat you. So that's lesson number 1. Lesson number 2, what did we learn? We learned who our friends were and who our friends were not. We learned that the Achilles heel of us Greeks is jealousy. Listen, if Adriana does well, bravo this. It's not yes, but. It's yes, bravo. That's our world. That's where we come from. But we learned that there's another side to that coin. And sometimes you can be swimming in idealism and not recognize that. Third, never stop. We had a very, very difficult time here. And it was very hard. The hardest was, let's say, honoring verbal commitments to stay quiet for the greater good, including ourselves as part of that greater good. And we did that. And there was a time a few years ago, it was interesting, where things turned, both in Greece and and we had problems everywhere. Because if you have a global group and you have a problem somewhere that's very serious, you have a problem everywhere. It's not cauterized to one place. We have 75 banks that we deal with. We deal with 80 financial institutions around the world. And all of a sudden we had a mountain of, I'm not going to say what to deal with here in Greece. I can hear the chuckles. One day I will talk more about it. Yeah. That day is not today. But never give up. Tomorrow is always a new day. And when you feel at maximum hopelessness and you feel like you have a mountain of hopelessness to cross, keep going. Keep going. You don't know what tomorrow brings. We only evaluate life today backwards. We have no vision of what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I mean, I have a schedule, but I don't know how the day's going to go. So we are also, as human beings, we default more to fear than to hope. We're not wired to be hopeful. To be hopeful requires effort. It requires courage.
Yeah, and you really love Greece. You always want to have a connection with Greece, even in the hard times and in the good times, especially. Of course, we all want to be in Greece in the good times. The Greek values, as you said, has shaped who you are and has shaped the evolution of Libra Group. You did a lot for Greece in the times of crisis. When many of the companies left, I was here and lived the crisis, so I know. And you helped socially and politically here in Greece. Yeah. So can you please tell us a little bit how you helped socially and politically?
Politically, we did a lot, Adriana, but I'm not sure if this is the right forum to talk about that.
I think it is.
Look how many people there are.
I think it is that.
Look, there was a time where I was in the White House once or twice a month for 9 months in a row.
Yeah.
And everybody should know that it is the United States that stopped Greece from being thrown out of the Eurozone. And the reason I know that is because President Obama came to my house for dinner 5 days after the July 12th meeting, and he told me the whole story. So he stopped it. Jack Lew stopped it. But someone had to give advice that knew. I can tell you one story that I think is safe to say here, and that is a very interesting one with Christine Lagarde. Lagarde is a very high-quality person. Make no mistake. She's a lady in every sense of the word. She's very smart. She's a very decent person. When you reach those levels, everyone criticizes you and some people love you, but you get more criticism than love. But she's good. And when was this? In 2017 or 2018, I remember clearly there was a big problem because she was the head of the IMF, and there was an AQR for the Greek banks, Asset Quality Review. And if the AQR had gone ahead, I mean, the Greek banks would have collapsed. I mean, forget where we are today, Greek banking-wise. So I was asked by someone, I won't say who, to convince her to stop with the AQR. So I don't remember if this was 17 or 18. And this is one of many such stories. But we host Concordia, as you know, right?
Yes.
You're invited.
Thank you.
And I had a meeting with Lagarde. But I needed more than 10 minutes. So I remember the Concordia team were like almost guarding the door so that no one could get in. And I had a private meeting with her like this, one-on-one. And I was told by this person in Greece what was needed. Because at the time, the IMF was very clear. AQR. AQR equals insolvency equals collapse equals a whole other set of crisis. And I explained to her, I said, listen, you've got to stop looking at Greece only through the lens of digits and a financial crisis. I said, the Greeks have suffered enough, Madame Lagarde. I talked about, I've always thought that the greatest asset of Greece is the location, because to the right is war, to the left is peace, simply put. So I gave her a speech, and I could see it going in, and I was getting more confident, but she didn't say anything to me. And I couldn't press her. So it's delicate. You have to be sensitive. So anyway, we were in for 20 minutes, and I remember we talked a lot about an organization that we founded called Home Project, which we started 10 years ago, at the request of the White House. That I can say. And so then we go out, and she goes on stage. And I'm like, man, she hasn't said anything. Well, I can't push any more than I've pushed. It's a balance. You've got to be, So then, and she was being interviewed on stage, just like here. And then she goes backstage, and I was there. And she comes up to me and she says, George, I thought about what you said, and you're right. And they stopped the AQR.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. There's a lot more there, but that's for another time. One day I will tell the full story of what we really did, and which was why particularly, it was very painful to go through what we went through.
Will you do a book about that?
Maybe. I don't know.
It would be amazing.
Yes, it's pretty exciting, But, this whole group was built on Greek values. And I will tell you, so my grandmother was a very important part of my life. I had many sicknesses as a child. I grew up sick the whole time. My dad in the audience knows that oh so well. But I had love. And I had belief. And I had people believing in bright-eyed Georgie boy. And I had my grandmother, and she would always say, Panda bros, Yorgo. So here's a young lady who, at the age of 20, is living in Chios, and the Nazis come. And they don't come with flowers and roses. They come with guns, and they come killing people. So she went from living a pure life to a violent life immediately. Number one, Panda bros, Yorgo. Second, my grandfather liberated Chios. Why did they give him the honor? Because he was a Welsh Greek from Chios. He liberates the island, then a civil war begins on the island. What did she say? Panda bros. Then she has to go to Wales. Imagine a young Greek girl going to Wales. Difficult. She was teased. She was looked down upon. It wasn't good to be Greek in 1960 in Wales. All right?
Yeah.
Panda bros. And to end that story, last week, when I was in New York, I had a lunch with Congressman Gabby Giffords, who is a woman full of courage and hope. She was shot in the head in 2011. She had a very serious brain injury, and she had to overcome a lot of pain. And at the lunch, on her left, so Gabby is on my left, and on her left is Barbara, her nurse, from Cameroon. And I told the story of my grandmother, Panda bros, and I noticed that Barbara was becoming emotional. So I said, Barbara, can you please speak? Can you please explain to us what's up? Where are you from? African lady with a very thick African accent. Oh, I grew up in Cameroon, and my brother went through the Darien Gap. But for those of you who don't know, the Darien Gap is walking through hell on earth. He managed to get to the United States. He's now a doctor. And I said, is there an equivalent saying in Cameroonian for Panda bros? And she goes, yes, there is. I said, what is it? Ahead, ahead. Panda bros, Adriana. Head ahead. Panda. And that's how you frame obstacles. Are they obstacles or are they opportunities? And we still have the freedom to choose how we respond to something. We can't control what comes at us. We can't. Maybe we think we can, but we can't. It just comes. And you don't know what you don't know. But you can control your reaction to it. And that's where, again, those Greek values and those that oppressed gene, which survived famine, war, oppression, is in us all. We have much to be grateful for.
Well, thank you so much, George. It's really inspiring talking here with you.
You want to keep going?
All right, so I have one more question because it's very important, and I think in times of crisis, you invested in the youth,
Yes.
young people.
Yes.
It started the internship program. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, I can. So, look, listen, the Greek crisis was not just a crisis of the Greeks in Greece. It was also a crisis for the Greeks outside of Greece. Not as bad, but don't think we didn't feel it. And I'll tell you one of the ways we felt it was, I remember when we first setting up Libra in 2003-04. I'd worked with my dad for 10 years running the shipping company, and then we started going around the world. Everyone loved the Greeks. Everywhere you would go, every single country, oh, you're Greek, oh, you're Greek. And then in 2010, 2011 time, it started collapsing, and it became a liability. And all of a sudden, all the Greeks were cheats, they were lazy, and it made us crazy. Like, no, yeah, there are lazy people everywhere, including in Greece and in America and in the world. But there are some brilliant people too. So I remember we were very angry. We were angry as a family. It wasn't just me. It was my brothers, it was my dad, it was the Greeks in our group. Our pride was pulled from within us, under. It was pulled under from within us. So with that anger in mind, and with that need or desire or both to be looked at, I went to a dinner. Let's just say the dinner was in New York. And at the dinner, there were the good and great of our society. But they were all complaining about Greece. And I was sitting there, I didn't speak for 1 hour. I stayed quiet, I just said, you know what, but slowly the anger was building in me. And at some point, what happens with me is it builds, and then at some point it reaches a pop, and the button goes off. It's like a button, pop. So I said, after 1 hour, I said, everyone here, please, listen to me. And they all went quiet. I said, all of you here have a choice. And now, what's he going to say? I said, you all have a choice to either keep complaining about the problem or start contributing to the solution. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up an internship program for 10 young Greek kids. And it came from anger. But the anger was governed with some wisdom. It didn't go into the bitterness camp or the resentment tribe. So we then had to set up an internship program. I said it, so we had to do it. So what we ended up doing was partnering with the American College of Greece, DIRI. We have a 12-year partnership with them. Yesterday, I was at DIRI, and I met some of our ex-interns. I met some of our future interns, because I spoke to 400 14-year-olds. So what we did, Adriana, was we started the program. We partnered with DIRI. Originally, it was just taking students from DIRI. The program today takes 75 young people from around the world, including in Colombia.
I know.
You know. So when I launched, I went to Colombia in December to Bogota, and President Duque asked me to launch his foundation with a speech, which I did. But just before the speech, I'm in a room with 32 former and current Libra Group interns. So the program started in Greece, where we imported hope at a time where there was none, and then we exported hope.
To places where there's no hope.
Yes, well, there wasn't. And that, look, also hope is a state of mind, right? Yeah. Hope is free. Hope is invisible, too. Courage is invisible, courage is free. These are two critical commodities of humanity, hope and courage. But they are both free. And it's strange to say that, because you think, well, okay, it's okay for you to say it, George. No, the 80 times I've been in hospital in my life, always hopeful. Always.
Always.
Yes, and calm. And calm.
That's the key.
Yes.
Keep calm.
when you are in danger, keep calm. Because if you don't keep calm, the anxiety hijacks your execution capabilities. But yesterday, we have interns that come, and we also have 2 interns that became CEOs within our organization. I'm not going to name them. They're probably here, but they'll probably be too embarrassed. But we have 2 interns that started as interns 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and they became CEOs. There's an intern who became a CFO. So it's a system. And it started here from anger, weaponized with some wisdom and empathy.
You normally talk about courage. And I would like you to tell us about the It Takes Courage award.
Okay.
We have 3 more minutes because it's very important, and you did it in Panama, and it's also a Greek value that you are achieving.
Okay. So Mike Manatos, yes, for the last 12 years has been running an organization in Washington called Orchidea Foundation. Many of you will know Orchidea. Orchidea is Orchidea, right? The Greeks know what Orchidea is, but people outside of Greece don't know. Okay, so that means 20 million people in the world know, but 7.98 billion don't know. And Mike came to see me with his father and Father Alex a year and a half ago, and we're by the boardroom. And he says, George, can we please have Libra Philanthropies help to lift up Orchidea into a more global event? And then he says, and George, hold on, I want you to watch this speech. So he puts a speech of me on. I said, I'm not watching it. And he says, what are you talking about? I said, I never, ever watch a speech of mine. I never read a speech that I've written. Once it's done, it's done. And I never watch it. And I remember the look on your face. It was like, is he being serious? Yes, I'm being serious. Anyway, he had to convince me to watch like 10 seconds. And so the only speech I've ever watched of myself is the one that he showed me that day. So we engaged our apparatus, which is global on the philanthropic side. And Libra Philanthropies has impacted 30 million people in 182 countries and holds a lot of IP. The IP in some ways is more important than the actions.
Yeah.
And we came up with a plan. And part of the plan was to rebrand Orchidea, because again, it's Orchidea. It's a wonderful thing, but you have a ceiling, right? So I think what we said is take away the Greek ceiling and put an international floor, right? But we needed a name. And this I'm very proud of. And this, I don't know, I've been thinking the last 30 seconds, should I say, yeah, he says yes. Okay, all right. So, we needed a name, Adriana. Yeah. And one month later, I was driving to Washington because I like to drive and think and make the phone calls. And I realized, my God, we don't have a name. So I called Daisy. You know who Daisy is?
No.
Okay.
Who's Daisy?
Who's Daisy? Only don't know who's Daisy. Daisy's my daughter. One of my daughters. I have 2. So Daisy was 8 years old at the time.
Yeah.
And so I called Nitsi, my wife. Nitsi, can you put Daisy on? Daisy comes on. Hi, Dad. Daisy, I need your help. Oh, okay. I said, and I had to put it in 8-year-old language. But I said, listen, Daisy, one of the meetings that I have tomorrow is with the foundation about courage. And they want our help to make it go all across the world. It's called Orchidea, but we need a new name. Can you please think of a name? Yeah, sure, Dad. Hold on. It takes courage, Dad. I was stunned. What? Courage counts, Dad. It's shock.
Of course.
Right? She's 8. So the next day we had our meeting with Mike, and the system, whatever the system is, Libra's system had produced names. We included It Takes Courage. We included Courage Counts and some other names of Daisy, but we didn't tell them who it came from because we didn't want to prejudice the decision of the board of Orchidea Foundation if they knew it came from Daisy. We wanted, if Daisy's idea was good and worthy, she gets the prize. So and I told Daisy, I said, Daisy, listen, we haven't told them who came up with the names. So we have to be patient. And because the board of directors, now she knows what a board of directors is. 1 month later, they chose It Takes Courage. And that is how you build confidence. Where it's warranted, where it's earned. It's not granted. What is granted is the opportunity. A poquito better, you have to do what you have to do.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Bye.